Welcome, my 11th house Pluto friends. Y'all are my one-of-a-kinders, here to leave your special mark on society, and this is why I love you guys. So sit back and relax as we look at the ways that Pluto in the 11th house could manifest in your life. Okay, so if you just happen to have stumbled across this video and you have absolutely no idea where your Pluto is in your birth chart, then have no fear. Just head on over to astro.com, and once you're there, click charts and then extended charts. Type in your birth information, including your birth time, and a nice pretty little birth chart will appear and let you know exactly where your Pluto is. Now, the house that your Pluto is in will tell you where in life your soul craves transformation, where there might quite possibly be swings between extremes in your life, areas of life that you may obsess over. It can tell you things that you may subconsciously fear or things that you have to work through. So, what is Pluto? Well, Pluto is the planet that represents transformation, the psyche, things that we obsess over, things that we fear, death, taxes, secrets, and manipulation. And what is the 11th house in astrology? Well, the 11th house is ruled by Aquarius, which is represented by Uranus. The 11th house is the friendship house, the house of the internet, space, connections, information. It's a very innovative house. It's eccentric. It's a futuristic house. It's a humanitarian house. So what happens when you have the planet of transformation in the house of friendship and humanity? Well, you get someone who is just trying to find their tribe in this world. They're looking to find a place where they belong. Remember, Pluto is here to teach us things. It is the planet that is farthest away from the sun, so it receives the least amount of light. So when you deal with Pluto, you often find yourself dealing with the darker, shadowy side of things. But Pluto works by first having you in situations where you are powerless. And then you experience lessons that help build you up to having strong personal power. So what is it like to have Pluto in the 11th house? Well, let's take a look at these natives' childhood and what it looked like. So it's possible that these children did not feel like they fit in with their family. Now, it's possible that they would have been adopted, or maybe that they moved new places when they were younger and they didn't know anyone. It could be even that they were born into their biological family, but they could still feel like something is off, like they don't just click as a family unit. It's possible that as a child, your hobbies or interests did not appeal to one or both of your parents, or maybe you were not into your parents' interests or hobbies. Like maybe you're into sports and one of your parents was more spiritual and just didn't understand the fun behind sports or something. These children could suffer from a parent who dies and leaves the family, and the family dynamic is shaken up. Or maybe the surviving parent remarries and you just feel like you're not a part of the new family or something. You could have a parent that goes off to jail or prison, and now you're looked at to lead your family even though you have no interest in doing this. I mean, this can really manifest in a lot of different ways. When you were younger, these natives could have a parent that divorced and then one parent abandons the child, or maybe I should say doesn't put forth the same effort for the child as before. Like maybe one parent just becomes very inconsistent after divorce. There's just usually some type of disconnect within the family. Now, this happens because your family is the first group of people that you're associated with in this world. So it's the first group that you have to learn how to navigate with this placement. So you may feel misunderstood by your parents. Or this may have manifested in school, where the child had difficulty being in groups, especially larger groups. It's likely that this native is different in some kind of way or different from their peers. These are the kids that may have absolutely hated doing group works in school or at work, okay? It's possible that as a child, they got along better with adults versus children their own age. They may have been bullied in school. They may have been unfairly targeted for being different. I mean, these are the people that actually may find that teachers and other adults actually joined in on the bullying. This is a hard placement because think about it. If the adults that are supposed to be watching out for you and your best interest join in on the bullying, then these natives can feel like there's no support in this world, that they are alone. And they may feel like an outsider in this world. You know, there's many things that can make them feel like an outsider. Like maybe they are just intellectually superior than most people in their peer group, okay? And they may find it hard to have superficial conversations with people. They also may feel like they just aren't on the same wavelength as others, okay? Because they know they are different. Can lead them to feel extremely misunderstood by others, and they may find that others ignore them, or they may feel like they can be socially awkward at times. Pluto puts these natives in situations where the native has to find their tribe of people. They have to find where they belong in this big, big world. And it isn't always easy for these natives to go find where they belong. And, you know, they can go through some extremely painful experiences on their journey to finding their place in this world. And this is where the hero journey begins for this placement. People with Pluto in the 11th house may find that at first, they conform to be a part of a group because they really can't find a supportive peer group around them. But once they do this enough, they conform, their soul cannot take it anymore, okay? They cannot keep conforming. And they become self-aware and realize that they are wasting their precious energy conforming. They would rather just have people that are similar to them, you know, with their out of the box of way of thinking, or their, you know, others may think that their ways are weird, but they would rather have people that are similar to them so that they don't have to be someone that they're not. They can use the energy that they wasted conforming into finding a group that's like them or believes the same as them. Now, what is beautiful about this energy is these people can find the group that is similar and then lead the group. And if they can't find a group, these natives are the ones that will start the group on their own. These natives can be fantastic leaders, and people naturally can look to these people to lead. Now, the great thing about this placement, and what I absolutely love about it, is if they find their people and they do lead them, these natives can be quite protective over the group. Once these natives find their group, they can feel secure, and to them, there is some type of power in finding your tribe. These people may find that their group that they belong to is not considered mainstream, okay? So you know this is in the house ruled by Aquarius. So when I say groups, it doesn't only mean in-person clubs, okay? When I think of Aquarius, I think of AI and the internet. So these natives may create online clubs, or maybe a coupon club or a book club. And now, because Pluto is ruled by Scorpio, these could be secretive clubs. And it makes me kind of think of those groups on Facebook, you know, are we dating the same person? Like only certain people are approved to join those. Or maybe with the scorpionic traits of Pluto, you create a club that is considered taboo, or maybe you create some type of group that uses psychology to help others, or you may be a part of a group for self-improvement. It can be metaphysical as well. Maybe you're a part of an astrology club or an occult group. You know, these people can be psychic, and that's not considered mainstream. So they may eventually find their group of people that is similar to them and that can understand what they are going through. You may be a part of a group that wants to raise consciousness together. Remember, Aquarius deals with humanity, and your way of serving humanity is to get a group together and to raise awareness of spiritual things. Or maybe you create a club about something that you're extremely passionate about. Now, once someone with this placement is a part of a group, it's going to depend on a lot of factors to know how this is going to play out. So this is why you got to look at the whole chart. These people transform over time with their role in groups and their viewpoint on groups. So it will depend on what stage this native is at. It will also depend on the aspects in the native's birth chart and what they are doing to this Pluto. But these are the people that once a part of a group, they may have noticed power struggles or manipulation, or maybe they were a part of a group where someone tried to dominate them or dominate the group, or maybe they were a part of a group where someone was controlling. These people may have experienced some type of conflict within the group dynamics. It's possible that if these natives begin leading a group, that others can become competitive out of nowhere. They can become jealous of them. These natives are likely to see the darker side of group dynamics. So if it's friend groups, maybe you witness your friends gossiping around about one another, starting rumors, or one friend betraying another. Or maybe at work you notice that, your team, there's just always someone trying to dominate it. Pluto wants you to learn how to maneuver group dynamics. And Pluto likes to put you in situations where you figure out that you don't like, so that you can get to what you do like. If you get caught up in the negative, shadowy side of group dynamics, it can become exhausting. And these natives may retreat, okay? They may not trust people because they watch how backstabbing and betrayal goes on in large groups. So they may find themselves becoming a loner in life. They may become self-reliant and self-sufficient, so they do not need anyone else. These people could have experienced betrayal from a friend. Maybe a friend talked about them behind their back, or maybe someone borrowed some money and never paid it back, or a friend that you had for a long time just ghosted you and you never hear from them again and you don't even understand why. Or maybe you randomly have friends delete you off their social media even though nothing happened between you. Sometimes these people can be unfairly blamed for things in their friend groups. Now, these people can attract friends that are in turmoil. So maybe their friend has a substance abuse issue, or a relationship issue that is to the extreme, or fighting a custody battle, or fluctuating or bad finances, or they're in and out of jail. With this placement, you can lose friends either by ghosting, abandonment, even death. Friendship groups may be an intense experience for you. It's very possible that you have had at least one toxic friend, if not more if you have this placement. You may experience some dramatic insta friendships seemingly out of nowhere, and it can be frustrating. So these people decide to just be alone in the world, or they could have a very small circle where there are just a few people that have proved their loyalty. Scorpio and Aquarius are fixed signs. They don't necessarily like change in their friend groups or social situations. And you may find that you go through these peaks and valleys with friends. Like you may have really high highs, and then you almost sink into a depression when things aren't going right. Or you may be the person that finds you transform into someone new, and you get a new set of friends that match your new belief system. Pluto is going to make changes. And, Uranus is a planet that likes shakeups too. So, yeah, these people, they are not going to be able to avoid shakeups when it comes to their social life and group dynamics. Now, these people may be loners because they just feel different than everyone else. So like someone who is extremely intelligent, okay, because Albert Einstein had this placement. Now, the good thing with Einstein is he was really, really young when he accepted the fact that he was an outsider and he thought different than most people. He accepted and embraced that part about himself. So, okay, so side note, ding, ding. Once someone with this placement accepts that they are somehow different than the others and they learn to embrace this quality about themselves, then these people can soar. They can be creative geniuses, okay? So back to what I was talking about. Albert Einstein was different than most of his peers. Like, even as a baby, most toddlers begin speaking before the age of 2, but Albert was different. His parents actually consulted a doctor because he wasn't even talking before 2 years old. Now, his first school was a Catholic school, and he got bullied because he was Jewish. In Einstein's biography, it's told that he liked to play by himself rather than with other children because Einstein liked to read books or do puzzles or construct things. So he figured that being alone, he could focus his energy on accomplishing these things, and that's why natives with this placement may be loners. It's not because they fear a social connection, but it may be because they just want to focus their attention on certain ideas and they can pour their energy into these things and just not have the energy for social hour. These people could really, really, really like researching things and investigating and getting down to the bottom of their passions. This is why these people actually need to be a part of groups, because they are full of information about whatever topic that they deep dive in, okay? And they could share this information with the masses and teach and inspire others in their niche. Like Einstein's jam was physics, okay? He thrived because he deep dived into a topic, learned way more than anyone else could with this topic, and then was able to share it with other groups of scientists that were like-minded. You know, when Albert was younger, the kids in his class weren't just a bunch of little scientists running around. He was already thinking deeper than they were, and he just couldn't relate to them. So no one in the environment was born in a similar way to him. He had to go out and find his people with similar interest. Now, if you really think about it, about the story of Pluto, you understand why these people have a time in their life where they just feel like they do not fit in with the outside world. Now, Pluto in mythology is the god of the underworld. And other gods were like over things in the world. Like Poseidon was the god of the sea, Zeus was the god of the sky. So they were of this world, but Pluto is the god of the underworld, a world that is separate from the world that we live in. He was a loner there because he was the god of deep and heavy things like manipulation, obsession, and death. The other gods can't just have like this light, friendly conversation with Pluto because he was always dealing with this heavy stuff in his life. He didn't even have a mate in life. He was all alone. And now in some myths, Pluto is shot by Cupid's arrow and falls in love with a beautiful woman named Persephone. In other myths, he comes up from the underworld and abducts Persephone. But either way, their love story begins with manipulation, not consent. Pluto's life, job, and residence deals with the dark side of things. So it makes total sense to me why it's so hard to be light and fluffy to the outside world when you're dealing with so much privately in your mind. There can be a sense of seriousness to you at times. You may have a rich inner world within you that you like to explore. So you may be very selective with who you spend your energy on. You eventually find your place where you are not misunderstood. People with this placement can be considered ahead of their time, meaning they were kind of like trendsetters. No one thought like them or did the things like they did in the time that they lived. So you already know Albert Einstein had this placement, but so does Woody Allen. And in some ways, he was considered to be ahead of his time with the way that he directed his films. His first film was a comedy, and he used a Japanese spy movie and he dubbed over it with this funny dialogue. And this had never been done before. He also directed the first film that was adapted from a self-help book. Then that was just absolutely unheard of during that day, but he did it anyways. He wasn't afraid to be different than the rest. People with this placement may not go with the flow of what the mainstream standards are. They may do things their own way or challenge the standards of the old paradigms that exist today. These people are here to take us to the future with their ideas. The way that they do things, they can teach us, and they are kind of like the bridge from the now to the future. So even though something has been done the same way for hundreds of years and it's proven that it works, these people are the ones that aren't afraid to try something new to see how it works out. Pluto forces them to break free from what other people think and what society conditions people to be. They will go through situations where they are made to go through the fire and break free of the weight that they give other people's opinions. These people may want to be liked and to fit in, but they realize that they're unique and actually don't fit in. Pluto deals with personal power. So when you believe other people's opinions about you, or you believe that being different is a bad thing because someone said it, you give that person a little bit of your power. But once you realize what a gift you have for being different, you gain all that power back, and you're not afraid to be the real, authentic you in front of others. Pluto has a way of making you become comfortable in your own skin to the outside world. There's a quote that reminds me of this placement. It goes something like, people come into your life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. And once you find your place in this world and once you can find your voice, you can have such a powerful effect on people. You can be such a great leader with this placement. And there is a great deal of influence if you have Pluto within your 11th house, especially influence of others in the outside world. So I will say my one piece of advice if you have this placement is to learn strategies to be an effective leader. Because with this placement, it's possible that you are smarter than the people that you are surrounded by. So it can be easy to come off as authoritative or bossy or forceful because you've already done the digging on things. You already have the answers, or you already know how to do something, but you're surrounded by people who don't. So it may seem like you're a know-it-all or something, and this may rub people the wrong way when you're really just trying to teach others what you know. So just watch how you deliver messages with this placement. And remember that if you disagree with someone or if they disagree with you, just ask yourself, what is this situation trying to teach me about myself? There has to be a reason they are in your life. Now, you also may find that people are only in your life for a season. So this one can really suck because sometimes you get attached to people and they leave your life. But ultimately, with this placement, you have the opportunity to find your tribe that will be with you for a lifetime. So that's why that quote, it reminds me of the people that have this placement, that people come into your life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. It fits this placement so well. Remember, Pluto in the 11th, you have all the knowledge. You have these natural leadership skills, but you don't necessarily want to be bossed around. So you realize that there are effective ways to teach the masses, okay? And this can be hard for, say, someone that has maybe Pluto in Sag, where, you know, you could be quite direct and honest, and other people just may not like the honesty. You know, I don't understand, because as a Sag, I love when people are honest and direct with me. You know, it just cuts out the BS, but to each their own. People can't handle the truth sometimes. So look to multiple ways to deliver the truth. Also, one thing I forgot to go over is that some people with this placement, they are very staunch in their opinions, okay? But remember, if you have this placement, not to be so staunch that you become closed-minded and you don't listen to others. Because remember, sometimes others in a group can share some amazing ideas that can change your perspective on things, or they can challenge you in ways that force you to look at what your opinions are or help you grow. These people can be the change that they wish to see in the world, because they can be the trendsetters. You know, they can be the first ones to stand up and make a change. And you will notice that when you share your ideas, however radical they may be, you will attract people if you have this placement. Now, also, don't be so hard on yourself if you're not like Einstein and you already passed your point of conforming to groups to be validated, okay? Pluto is the farthest planet away from the sun, and it takes the longest to make a full rotation around the sun. So Pluto can take a long time to transform something. So just realize that with this placement, it may take some time to define yourself or your role within groups, and that's okay. Now, let's look at some celebrities who have Pluto in their 11th house and see how it is played out for them during their life. Denzel Washington has his Pluto in his 11th house. Now, it's interesting because in some interviews, he talks about how there was this disconnect between him and his dad growing up. His dad was a preacher and Denzel loved sports, and his dad just could not relate to him because he was more spiritual. You know, he goes on to say in an interview that when his dad passed away, he didn't shed a tear over him at a funeral. And, you know, he just said that he never felt connected to his dad. So you can see how Denzel did not feel like he was a part of the family unit when growing up. You know, his family was broken with the divorce, and him and his dad just weren't able to relate to each other or to connect. So they basically went on to lead two separate lives, which is something that a native with this placement may find. You know, they end up being disconnected with a parent and not necessarily having any ill will towards them. They just kind of can be indifferent to a parent, you know. Courtney Love also has her Pluto in the 11th house. Now, if you don't know who Courtney Love is, she is the lead singer of Hole, but she's also known for being Kurt Cobain's wife, who was the lead singer of Nirvana. Okay, so she moved around a lot as a child, and she traveled a lot. You know, she found herself always being thrown into new groups and new communities. So just to give you some insight, okay, Courtney's mom was a psychotherapist, so let's talk about being able to go into some deep things into the psyche. And her dad was Grateful Dead's road manager. So her parents end up divorcing, and they were in San Francisco at the time. But after the divorce, Courtney and her mother moved to Oregon. And so then she ends up being adopted by the man that her mom remarries. So you can see how Pluto in the 11th played out, with one of her parents abandoning the family and not really putting forth the effort of seeing her. You know, the same thing happened with Denzel. It's like the relationship with her father got distant to the point that she was adopted by another man. You can see how there's an aspect with this placement that can cause a distance with a parent. Anyways, her mom ends up divorcing this guy that adopted her and ends up remarrying another man and moves to New Zealand. So you can see how Courtney would move and be a part of a group of people that were unlike her. You know, she was in places that would make her feel like an outsider. Now, Jeffrey Dahmer had his Pluto in the 11th house. Now, if you don't know who Jeffrey Dahmer is, he was a convicted serial killer and sex offender. He murdered at least 17 boys/men. And if you don't know the things that he did for his victims or did to his victims, then feel free to look it up. Now, I found it fascinating that Jeffrey's first grade teacher wondered if he was neglected at home because, as she put it, he was a reserved child on his report card. Now, to me, this is just me, but it's a big jump from seeing a reserved child to assuming that the child is neglected, okay? Maybe it's just that I taught at school at one point and I just realized that there's shy children and it doesn't mean that they're neglected. I mean, heck, even I was a shy child, but I wasn't neglected. So I don't know if there was more evidence that she observed where she felt like maybe he was neglected. But anyways, that was just a side note, ding ding. Okay, so let's get back to the story. You can see that he was a loner and he was a very reserved child, which is something you could find with an individual who has their Pluto in the 11th house. Now, most of his classmates in high school viewed Dahmer as an outcast, as they put it, okay? There were some of his classmates that said, although Dahmer was socially awkward, he became known as someone who would act out in class. And he would do things like make loud noises in a quiet classroom, or he would knock things over. And, one time he even went as far as acting like he was having a seizure to scare a teacher. And his classmates thought it was funny. I mean, it's high school, So he did it so much that, like, when others mimicked something similar to what he had done, they would actually call it doing a Dahmer. So, you know what I'm saying? Like, okay, let's say you're in math class with Roger, and Roger comes in and starts making this obnoxious noise. And when, let's say the class is reading a section by themselves and it's just super quiet. Okay, the class would probably give Roger high fives and be like, yeah, man, you're doing a Dahmer. Anyways, you can see how Jeffrey wanted to fit in at school. He would do things that would get him in trouble and have consequences just to get that laugh for validation from others, okay? Because at home, Jeffrey was a different type of child. He was obsessed with animal bones and how they fit together. And he started collecting them by finding roadkill. And he would dismember the bodies and all that stuff. So you can see how he chose to focus his attention on animal bones. And he became obsessed, wanting to study all about it. So by diving deep into animal bones and becoming obsessed about it, he doesn't have the time or energy to focus his energy on something as frivolous as having friends. His energy is meant to be channeled on animal bones. So that's why I believe he was a more reserved as a child. Just also think about how much more, like, intellectually more superior he would have been about bones and animals than his peers. Like, he couldn't talk about his passions to others because he already went into learning so deep that he can no longer relate to those in the everyday world. Like, how can you have a conversation about the weather when you have been inside reconstructing a squirrel's patella all day long? Like, this placement has the amazing capability of being a human encyclopedia when it comes to whatever their talent is. And they can be a huge reserve of knowledge that can be shared with others. Like, just think about it. If Jeffrey Dahmer had used his power to focus on animal bones in a positive way, like, he could have went on and made new creations in the fields of zoology or maybe forensics or the medical field. I mean, he could have went on to teach others about his passion so that new things could be created from his knowledge. My favorite part of you guys is how unique you are and that y'all are the trendsetters of the zodiac. Just way ahead of your time sometimes. So if you have Pluto in your 11th house, how has this placement played out for you? Let me know in the comments below. Currently, I put out videos every Sunday on astrology, and right now I am doing a series where we talk about Pluto through the houses. Thank you again for joining me today on our journey through Pluto in the 11th house. I look forward to seeing you in my next video. Mwah.